It's been just 6 months since Steve Johnson took over the reins at USA Cycling, but already the new CEO is dreaming big. Among the items on his wish list, a nation where obesity and overdependence on gas-guzzling cars are wiped out by the new dawn of the bicycle. Johnson believes the time of the automobile is drawing to a close and sees the bicycle as a savior to America's woes. A tad overly optimistic? Maybe. But Johnson's other visions seem very attainable. He wants to triple USA Cycling's membership, bring a ProTour event to America, and continue refining the pipeline that has supplied a steady stream of homegrown talent to the European peloton. Recently, VeloNews sat down with Johnson at his office in Colorado Springs for an exclusive, wide-ranging interview. Here's what the new boss had to say. How did you get into the cycling world?
Well, I actually started competing quite at an advanced age. I think I was 29 when I did my first race back in 1979, but I was a skier in my undergraduate life, skied for the University of Utah, and then all skiers ride bikes for training and for fun, and in graduate school ended up in the same lab as an individual who'd been a bike racer, and he basically decided that we should start riding a bike, and a little bit harder, talked me into doing my first bike race, and the rest became history. I ended up riding for amateur teams, all of Tom Weisel's early amateur teams actually, so I rode for what was first the Montgomery Securities team, and then through Subaru, Montgomery Bell, and then I had to kind of put that aside. I had to do my real job, which was a college professor. I was at the University of Utah for 15 years.
Oh, wow. USA Cycling oversees everything from elite athlete development to event management to member services.
Mm-hmm.
What is the mission of this organization?
Well, we're the national governing body for the sport, and our internal mission is basically it's a twofold mission. One is to grow the sport in America, and when we think of that, I think historically thought of growing the competitive sport. I'd like to broaden that a little bit. We can talk about that later. But then the other is success, international success in particular, and sustained international success specifically. And I think the two are connected. I think it's pretty clear that the international success of American riders, particularly over the last few years, has sort of fed back into the growth of the sport in America. So in some respects, it has helped us fulfill our primary mission of growing the sport in the country.
What do you think your biggest challenges are right now?
Obviously, from a elite athlete or from a development perspective, finances and resources are our biggest challenge as a country. We, unlike most of our competition, have no solid source of funding. We depend on sponsorship, we depend on money from the USOC, money from the foundation. We're basically underfunded, I think, with respect to our major competitors, other international cycling countries. And that's always been an issue for us. So we work within the constraints of a system that requires us to basically package and sell programs and try to raise money through sponsorship and other avenues.
Do you envision a day when there is a ProTour event in the United States, and what do you think it's going to take to make that happen, if you do in fact envision that day, which I bet you do?
I do.
And when might you see that happening?
I definitely envision the day, and I look forward to it. What it will take to make it happen, I don't think is clear. I do think that, again, our philosophy of exporting Americans to the ProTour teams is part of that, and I think that the fact that ProTour teams and international cycling sponsors have an interest in this country and the market this country represents is also a large part of that. And I think hosting world-class events is absolutely critical, and I do know that the Tour of California, Tour of Georgia are at a level that is world-class, and as they're at a level that would be legitimate contenders for, I think, a ProTour calendar event.
Role play with me for a minute. I'm going to pretend I am I'll be the father of an 18-year-old kid who's obviously shown some talent on the bike. But I've got my eyes open and I read the newspapers and I see what's going on in the professional cycling world, especially this summer. And I come to you and I say, Steve, tell me why I should want my kid to get deeper into this sport, and why I shouldn't discourage him from pursuing a life as a lawyer or a doctor or Indian chief. Yeah.
Indian chief. That question is not as abstract as you might think. I've actually heard it before, but I mean, it gets back to the issue. There's a bigger issue here of cheating, and I think that whenever the stakes are high, the temptation to cheat is going to be high, and from my previous life as a college professor. People cheat on ACTs, SATs, college entrance exams, LSATs, MCATs, Chemistry 101 finals. And as a result of that, we create a structure. You take a test in a room with a proctor walking up and down the aisles, or a teacher sitting in the front of the room watching. Why do you do that? Because you might cheat. But because people cheat, we don't throw the whole educational institution under the bus. We just adapt to it. We create a process that tries to minimize the impact and prevent people from cheating. If we catch them, we'll penalize them in some way. Okay. And doping is not just a cycling issue. It's a professional sport issue across the board.
Sure.
And the reason it is because the stakes are very high. And I think that clearly the stakes in cycling are as high as or higher than other professional sports. You've got multi-million-dollar salaries, multi-million-dollar endorsement opportunities. So because the stakes are high, people are going to cheat.
The NORBA National Series, once prized property of USA Cycling, definitely not what it once was. Yet at the same time, I think there's a lot of regional mountain bike events that are healthy and even growing. Why do you think there's a disparity there? And is there some sort of light at the end of the NORBA tunnel, or the NORBA National Series tunnel, for things like prize money and television and all that stuff?
I agree with you that there are a lot of great regional events. I have the same question. Why aren't they on what you might call a national mountain bike calendar? Okay. And I think you'll see coming out of this office in the next couple of months some real dramatic changes regarding how we do our mountain bike calendaring. And I'm not really ready to talk about it yet, so you have to stand by. But we ask ourselves the same question, and I think the NORBA board has asked themselves. I mean, obviously the NCS was the pride and joy of this organization in the late 90s, and I think it served its purpose well. But again, given the evolution of mountain biking and the fact that it's grown into these different kinds of sports, you've seen what's left of the National Mountain Bike Series is just the cross-country focused and traditional gravity side. So what I think it's going to take to grow the competition side of the sport with respect to organization is to embrace these other kinds of competition and to look at a calendar that really accommodates venues based on how well they suit the particular kinds of activities.
Some of the problems, maybe the USA Cycling was slow to react to the changes in the sport. Because you go and you see pictures from Whistler's. Yeah. They have the big free ride festival up there, and there's 40,000 people up there.
Yep. I think we were slow. I think we tend as an organization to be a little bit myopic. We focus on the Olympic pipeline, which is part of our obligation. I mean, we're on the USOC campus, and we will always have the obligation and the responsibility to field, hopefully, world-class Olympic teams. That said, again, the other part of our mission is to grow the sport, and I'm absolutely committed to that. I would like to be part of the growth of these sports that we're responsible for, and mountain biking is certainly one of those. And I'm absolutely convinced that there are a lot of people riding mountain bikes that aren't riding those mountain bikes in our National Mountain Bike Series races. So we need to fix that.
An ACA license for the road, mountain bike and cyclocross costs $30. I think Obra's is similar. Right now a USAC license, if I'm not mistaken, for the road is $60, and it would be an additional $60 for a mountain bike license. Why? That's a pretty substantial disparity.
Yeah, it is. Again, we're the national organization, so obviously we have a responsibility to the entire nation. Okay. We provide a much higher level of service than those organizations do. Our insurance package is second to none and basically dwarfs the coverage provided by those organizations. They underinsure, that's well known. We return $500,000 to the local associations and promoters on the mountain bike side, so we give money back to local associations. So we're really interested in developing a national structure and to grow the sport. I think, that said, I don't have any personal interest in going after, if you will, or undermining the efforts of OBRA or ACA, ABR. I think that if they are representing the needs of their local membership in terms of racing and safety, that's great. And that they continue to do a great job. They use our rules. I mean, that's why there are a lot of reasons they can sell a license for $30. We've created the infrastructure for the sport. It's there. All you got to do is take advantage of it. It's a little bit, I guess, in some respects, like your neighbor who decides, I don't want to pay taxes. I don't have any kids. They're grown up. They're out of the house. Why should I pay for the school tax? Why should I pay for the road tax? I ride a bicycle. The reality is there's a certain amount of infrastructure that's required to sustain a sport in the country. We do that. Other organizations are able, if they would like, to take advantage of that infrastructure.
Gotcha.
Use our rule book, use our officials. That's what they've chosen to do.
Jim Akowitz, who's the president of the USA Cycling, has in the past worked as a consultant for FONAC. This has come up before. This isn't the first time we've talked about it. Did you see a potential conflict of interest there?
Again, all boards have conflicts of interest.
Okay.
All board members have potential conflict of interest. What we try to do is declare those, and you manage around them.
Okay.
So when an issue comes up that might fall into the area that your conflict covers, then you should abstain from conversation. We do that all the time. All boards do that.
Okay.
So again, it's not improper to have a conflict of interest. It's just necessary to declare that and to manage it.
Okay.
And again, we're a small industry. I mean, as you know, everybody on our board, typically, with the exception of the foundation guys, the board members pretty much across the board, if you will, have some role in the cycling industry, which could be perceived as, or actually be, a conflict of interest. So we work pretty hard to manage that.
Tough question, Todd. Another statement Gerard made right after he was terminated, that he felt that a small group of individuals have sort of come in and taken over USA Cycling, and or maybe not managing in a way that is beneficial to the greater good, if you will. What's your reaction to a statement like that? I
disagree.
Okay.
Again, I think I've made the statement before that we're not an organization of shareholders, we're an organization of stakeholders, and that's true that there are a small number of people that have a large stake in cycling as an industry and as a sport. He may have been referring to US Pro.
Yeah.
I've heard that argument raised in respect to them before. But again, as I've said, they represent 15+ trade teams that pump millions of dollars, tens of millions, maybe even hundreds of millions of dollars into the sport through their team structure. They also represent some promoters of remarkable events in this country that I think have done as much as or more to grow the sport nationally as any of the other associations. So the reality is, you look at the Tour California, Tour Georgia, Philly, the Greenville. I mean, all of these pump tens to hundreds of millions of dollars into the sport, and at the end of the day they become very important in helping us to grow the sport. So as stakeholders, I think they have and deserve a fair amount of representation.
5 years, where do you see this organization, and what's it going to take to get it there?
Getting back to my early statements about trying to make us more relevant among the general cycling population, we have been working hard this summer already to kind of strategize and plan, and I would like to do several things in the next couple of years that I think will ultimately help us grow our membership substantially. So in 5 years, I'd like to see us at 150,000 members instead of the 58,000 members we have now.
Okay.
And we want to do that by, again, creating an opportunity to engage the average recreational, the commuter cyclist, the person who's interested in cycling for fitness and health, by providing information on our website that could be useful to them, by providing a portal for information to other websites that could be useful to them, and by growing the value of our license. You say $60, it's more than OBRA charges or ACA.
Right.
But we provide a lot of value for that license, and I want to provide more. I think that traditionally we've sort of offered up just the explanation that, well, what do I get for my $60? It's the right to race your bike. Oh, and a couple of bike coupons as well. But I think we can answer that question much more obviously by adding to that portfolio of affinity programs and discounts and shared opportunities, and I think the bicycle industry is the place to help us do that. I think that if you look at what people who ride a bike want, it's bike stuff, and I would really like to make sure we can provide everything a cyclist needs. We've already moved aggressively on the insurance side, so we've provided health insurance and accident insurance at very low cost because we discovered that a large number of our members don't have insurance, so we think it's important that they do. So we're going to continue to develop those kinds of programs and those kinds of benefits, and ultimately more value to the license.